Hello and welcome to another Frackin' podcast. I'm Marty and I'm here with my co-hosts.
I'm Joseph.
I'm Van.
And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. If you're tuning in again, thank you so much. We are so glad to have you back. Today's episode is Empress Georgiou Fan Club, and we'll be discussing the new Star Trek movie, Section 31. So this is your official spoiler warning. If you have not seen Section 31 yet, there will be massive spoilers during this episode. You have been warned.
You have been warned.
You have been warned. Thoughts on Section 31?
Yeah. So let's talk about it. In fact, let's start off talking about our Section 31 thoughts before this movie, because there's a lot of people who have a lot of different feelings about Section 31.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in because here's the thing. I love Section 31 in Star Trek, in Deep Space Nine. I loved it. I loved it in Discovery even. I think it was a little overblown in season 2 of Discovery, but I like the concept of Section 31 and the fact that it was not introduced to us until Deep Space Nine and until like a couple seasons into Deep Space Nine. And I like it for the same reason I like the Maquis, right? Which is the Federation comes across as like, hey, this is this ideal, like perfect paradise, and we don't need money, and we don't need anything, and everything's perfect. And look at our enemies; they're so horrible, they're so bad, and we just ignore the fact that in order to keep their perfect society, somebody has to do some nasty business. There has to be an intelligence group that violates the very nature of what Starfleet and the Federation is about. And I even liked that Enterprise showed Section 31 before the founding of the Federation. I'm just like combining words there. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, it shows that humanity had already set this up before all the other stuff.
Yeah. No, I'm going to agree with that. I think that the idea of Section 31 to me is very self-reflective. Like, just the idea of it makes sense that you're going to have this organization in the Federation, in Starfleet, for this kind of thing. But just because humans are not perfect, we've created this quote unquote perfect society, but we obviously are still flawed. We still have our failures. And I think that Section 31 is self-reflective in the sense that it reflects that aspect of humanity that hasn't moved away from the old ways yet. And I think, like you said, Sloan in Deep Space Nine is a brilliant character. I think the way that he wove himself into Bashir's storyline, he was very multifaceted, very exciting. I think in Enterprise, I think it was Harris who tries to recruit Reed into Section 31, that made sense. That made a lot of sense for Reed's character as well, because he's like kind of on the edge there for a while. He's not really sure who he is and where he wants to go with regards to Starfleet and everything that was going on. And so I think in that sense, Section 31 makes a lot of sense to me. It's not my favorite aspect, but like you said with the Maquis, it makes sense that this exists in the universe.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we're all more or less on the same page. I liked it in Deep Space Nine a lot. I think it was a little more than I wanted in Discovery, but I think they were really trying to set up, we're going to spin this off into a show. And then Michelle Yeoh had to go and like blow up, as she so rightly deserves. And she's like, I'm kind of busy. But she personally really, really wanted to do Star Trek. When they first contacted her, she did not want to come in and get killed off immediately. She wanted to come in. She wanted to do it. She wants to be part of the world. So I know that the spinoff could have been really, really good. And I am so disappointed we didn't get that show.
Like, I'm not sure if I see. This is where I'm kind of on the fence, and I was on the fence before I saw the film. about a Section 31 show. I think maybe I would have enjoyed like a one season, like a short mini series, like a 6 to 10 episode, uh, you know, offshoot of Section 31. I'm not sure that I would have wanted to see like a long running series, because I think then you run into complications and problematic aspects of Section 31, which I think we can talk about later that we saw in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think that there was something there that might have been worth exploring in some
I think
fashion.
it would have been fun to do something more similar to short treks than a new series that people would be upset about it not lasting, 10 seasons.
Right.
But something where we could have, a couple hour episodes every couple of years, maybe. I think that would be really, really fun, where we just, somebody comes up with a cool little Section 31 heist story and they're like, let's make this. I think there's still an opportunity to do that. And then rotate through the cast. You wouldn't even need to keep the same cast for it. It would be different Section 31 people all the time. I don't think they're going to do it though. They never do what I want.
Well, it's because Paramount hates the fans. Like, that's just. I'm going to sit here and say that every single time I can.
I don't know if they hate the fans or if they're trying so desperately to reach a new audience. They're so fearful that if they stick to the same old Star Trek, that they're going to drift away from the possibility of bringing new people in, that they come up with these wild ideas that just miss the mark.
I think they are definitely trying to appeal to a bigger fan base. I think they're trying to be Star Wars, but they shouldn't try and be Star Wars because Star Wars has already taken up that space. So there's no room to be another Star Wars.
Well, and I think Star Wars is even a good I think Star Wars is even a good example of where it's gone wrong as well, because as good as some of Star Wars new shows and films have been, they have also had some serious backfiring like failures.
Andor. Sorry.
I have mixed feelings on Andor. We'll have to make a different episode about that.
Okay. We can write that one down. We haven't really delved into Star Wars. We should make that
It's dangerous territory.
It is dangerous territory.
I mean,
hey.
We would get attention.
I'm just saying, their fans literally bully female presenting people and non-white people off of social media. That's all of us.
Yeah. We're all in danger. We're
all in danger.
This is true.
But I agree. I do think that they were trying to do something like Star Wars, like the MCU. I think they're trying to fall into like the Disney Plus direction of, but with Star Trek. And I think that fans who love Star Trek have proven that they are willing to wait for Star Trek. We have proven that we are long time, we are dedicated. This is like our religion. Like, if it takes 10 years to get a new series, we will be sad, but we will wait for it.
Yeah.
And I think that the expectations for Star Trek fans that already exist is at a level that is hard to reach if you are constantly putting out things like the MCU.
Yeah. Well, the MCU needs to chill out because they're exhausting. That's a whole other podcast too. I'm like, I can't. I don't even care about your characters anymore. This is too much.
I like it.
I feel
like the MCU is not exhausting?
I feel like the MCU does something with the characters that I, as only a casual comic book fan, really hate. And that's that they care about canon. And if you have ever extensively read into any series, if you've only read, say, Superman, very generic Superman comics, then canon is wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Like it's gonna change every single comic. Like, and they're like, no, it's this guy forever. All of these things are true forever. And I'm just like, I don't know.
It's not even that way in the comics though. Like if you I mean, for like chunks of time, this thing is true, like for 10 years. The only thing that's common Okay, like in Marvel, for example, the only thing that is always true in Marvel comics is that Uncle Ben must die.
Yeah,
Everything else gets like rewritten every few years, and it's totally okay.
and I love
Which,
that.
yeah, and I
But
I
the
don't
MCU
understand.
isn't doing that. And that's why I don't like it, because I'm exhausted because they're trying so hard to
I
like
mean, I
build
honestly,
off of stuff, and I'm like, no, just topple it over and start again. Be a
when
comic
it
book.
when it comes to canon, especially with Star Trek, I am not particularly like I kind of don't care. Like I would kind of I love TOS is my favorite. TOS is my love. It's TOS and DS9 forever. I like it's that or bust for me.
Right.
But if Strange New Worlds decided, and it's already kind of done this a little bit, if Strange New Worlds decided that they wanted to kind of branch off from canon and make some changes with certain relationships, with certain timelines of events, I'm okay with that because I know how it happened before. I'm interested in seeing how it could be a little bit different. I'd be interested in seeing Pike surviving this somehow, you know?
Yeah.
I'd be interested in seeing like I don't know. I don't want to say like Spock in a full like on relationship with somebody, but like there are things that can be explored here that I think are worth exploring. And if canon gets shifted, I think that's fine.
But the
I
Kelvin
think,
movies did that. Sorry, go
well,
ahead.
I mean, yeah, but the Kelvin movies were like
that's a different
totally
timeline.
universe,
I feel like they already
right?
set it up to say that time and events are in flux because
Yeah,
they
with
keep playing
Khan.
with time
Yeah,
with the whole Khan storyline.
yeah.
So the fact that they are not sticking to what a lot of people would be like, oh, this is TOS canon. I think it's fine for me. I know some people are like, ew, this whole Chapel Spock thing is really bothering me. And I'm like, you did you not watch the original series? Because Chapel was making moon knights at him the
Yeah.
entire time.
Yeah.
So like this is fine. Like I
That
don't want them together. He's clearly meant for Kirk. Like we just gotta wait a
obvious.
little bit till they meet.
But that being said, going back to the Section 31, that
Yes.
one of my biggest problems. Are we going to jump into talking about the actual movie now?
No, please no.
Well, what am I okay, then I'll say generally.
Okay.
If we're going to specifically say to the audience that a movie or a show is taking place in a certain timeline and there is nothing on screen to tell me outside of the date, the star date, what the timeline is, then I'm a little bit upset. So
Okay.
like clothing, the outfits. Like why did we see no semblance of a monster maroon anywhere? It bothered me that we're like in the timeline where Picard is 19 years old and at Starfleet Academy and it
Yeah.
looks like Discovery, you know? And I understand
Well,
we're on the fringes of space and I understand that it's not official Starfleet, but
so
like, you know.
so to clarify for people who have not watched a lot of Star Trek, right? You're discussing an episode of The Next Generation, or you're alluding to an episode of The Next Generation where there's time travel involved, and the Enterprise C comes into the future and it warps the timeline, and Captain Garrett, who's Garrett from this movie, is captain of the Enterprise C, and she's wearing a monster maroon, and it's very much a
What I'm saying
set
is
aesthetic.
like the timeline of the star date of this movie. I had to look it up. The star date
Okay.
of this movie takes place 40 years before the Next Generation. Picard
Okay.
is 19. He's at Starfleet Academy. This is right around the time when he gets stabbed by the Nausicaan. They're wearing monster maroons.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, he
think
wore that.
I think there was an absolute lack of Starfleet anything, and I think we could have just had a
Yeah.
fun flash or two of a uniform, because you know what? Then I would get to see cool cosplayers making that cool uniform, because everything that Star Trek has come out with, they're like, we're going to change the uniform for this new season. We're going to change the uniform for, you know, this. And we didn't get a new uniform, and we
got
didn't
a
get
lot
a
of great
new.
black leather jackets. What are you
You know what? I can't
Are you
argue
saying you
about
don't
that.
like black leather jacket?
I I
just
I
felt
live
like,
in a leather jacket, but
okay, I'm
like
just gonna
that's not
full
the
blown
same.
go hard here. I feel like it was kind of like, oh, if we put everybody in black leather jackets, we're gonna be edgy and cool. Like, we're putting them in black so that they're kind of bad. We're gonna add black leather so they're kind of cool.
I don't know. I feel
Like,
like we could have had a cool black leather uniform for Rachel Garrett to be in at some
yeah.
point, maybe towards the end, something. And then I would have fallen in love with it.
But that okay, so I know Van, you said specifically you don't care about canon. I care about canon a little bit. Like, I am willing to explore new things. I like Strange New Worlds. I even kind of like the fact that they redesigned the Enterprise bridge and they didn't try to like just carbon copy the original series, because it's very dated at this point, and my freaking work setup looks more futuristic than the original series, so we cannot keep on doing that. So I'm okay with some things, but a lot of Star Trek fans would lose their shit if they showed up with a whole brand new uniform, because everybody knows that in that time period everything was monster. Like, there are just things that people would nitpick to death and focus on, and I think not having uniforms at all in this movie kind of gives them some freedom. Plus, they're operating outside of the Federation, and she's supposed to be undercover, so why would she have any semblance of a uniform?
I mean, it could have been a flashback. It could have been at the end after she completed her mission.
I'm just saying that my problem is not necessarily that there were no uniforms. My problem is that you've expressly told me from the beginning the exact start date that this is happening, and so being the super nerd, I'm going to be like, ooh, is this after Kirk? Is this before Picard? I'm like, okay, I got to set myself in there mentally, and yet when I look at the screen, I see nothing that tells me. Like, even the tricorders they were using, which basically looked like my iPhone. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why couldn't they at least give them a more TNG era tricorder? So at least I'm like, oh.
Yeah. How do you go from like leather box, silver accents, perfect classic design to I'm using my iPhone to scan everything like I can do right now to a
And
gray box later on.
I understand they're trying to make it technologically, quote, advanced for new viewers. I 100% like, to me, when I watched Section 31 the first time, I thought this film was not for me. This film was made to attract new viewers. This is like for somebody who's maybe never seen Star Trek before. And honestly, had I never seen Star Trek before and I
Let me
watched
scan
this
you
movie,
real quick.
please scan me. Am I still alive? What are my biorhythms right now? If I had never seen Star Trek before and I watched this movie, I probably would have enjoyed it. Like, I probably would have had fun. I would have been like, oh, that's kind of fun. Kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy. Kind of spacey, fun. We're cracking jokes like Firefly kind of things. I wouldn't have thought it was anything super special, but I think if I was a kid, I would have been like, oh, that's cool. That's cool.
For the record, my kids won't sit through the whole thing. So I don't know. Maybe my kids are wrong. But yeah, no, they neither one of them, like, there is no sitting and finishing this movie with them. I tried multiple times.
I'm with Ryan here in the
no.
comments.
Yes, but
And
you
this
can make a film for both new fans and old fans.
And I don't think this film was that. I think this was for new fans.
I think it had Easter eggs. Which were kind of little.
Dan, the Easter eggs are what made me mad. There should have been no nods, no Easter eggs. Like, that's where I get heated. I get heated on the Easter eggs. Honestly, the story itself, fine, whatever. It's a heist movie. It's Ocean's 11 meets Guardians of the Galaxy. That's fine. It's basic. It's the Easter eggs that I lost it on.
Rachel Garrett. Oh, Joseph wants to make me angry.
You're talking
Joseph
about Easter
wants to make me angry.
Easter eggs. But
Easter eggs. I liked that they took an established captain that we had already seen, the first woman to captain the Enterprise, Rachel Garrett. I loved that we got to see her
I was okay with
before she became captain. So I appreciated that. I thought that was a really good inclusion and Easter egg. Most of the little nods and Easter eggs, I was not actually very thrilled with. So I do agree with you on that.
Oh,
I
that
think
Easter egg behind her in this photo right now, that one.
Oh,
Stop me.
oh,
Stop me
oh.
now. Like, stop
Okay.
me now. Are we going to talk about the loci? Loci?
I mean,
Come
do
on
you
now.
want to?
Yes, I want to talk about them.
Okay.
Do we have a picture of that guy?
I did not get a picture of
That's
just
okay.
the guy.
To anybody who's watching, you know who we're talking about. We're talking about the species from TOS with the half black, half white faces. The loci, I think is how you say it, loci. Oh man. From the last Battlefield episode, was it? I think.
Oh.
First of
Yeah.
all, this is where I get angry, canon wise. And like I said, I'm okay with being timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly with canon. But when you bring in a character like this, it upsets the impetus of the first of that episode. I mean, the whole point of that episode was to say that these people could not get along and they literally destroyed each other entirely. And then to just willy-nilly, oh, just kidding. One of them's working at this bar on the Outer Rim. Excuse me? No, they're all supposed to be gone because they were selfish, horrible people. And
They
that was
were.
supposed to be that was like the takeaway that people were supposed to, get from that.
Oh,
There they are. And now we know now I see which side he is. Now it makes sense. That's why he's alive. Because he's
wow. Yeah, I thought it was funny, but also it really, really bothered me to see the inclusion. Like, it was something that almost anyone who has had any interest in Star Trek will immediately know, because people talk about that episode all the time. It is very, very good. It's very important. I don't know how any Star Trek fan watches that episode and then talks about newer Trek being woke, because I'm like,
right.
are we not watching the same show? I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I do feel like including him kind of ruined it. It took a little bit of the power out of the episode because, oh, look, at least one of them's over here just being a bartender. Not
Yeah, for me, it takes away the strength of that episode. Is that we know this was a species that existed that is no longer around, right? There are so many other species they could have just thrown in there, or they could have even left him like that and then had somebody comment on it, like, "Aren't you guys supposed to be dead?" And then
that
you
would
find
have
out
been
that,
funny.
and then you find out that he's not actually one of them. He's just doing it for like a whatever reason, for like the vibes or for clout or for if you found out that he wasn't like really one of them, then I would have been maybe okay with it. Or
Okay,
if he was
so
just like, yeah, I don't know.
so let's dive into this a little bit for the people who don't know what we're talking about, right? So I'm going to show this. This is from the episode Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. And the entire premise of this episode is that these two aliens, who at cursory look are like, oh, they're the same species, are in this like horrible war. And it turns out that because one of the aliens has a right side that's white and the left side that's black, and then the other was vice versa, because if I tried to say that, I would get it wrong. They hate each other. And it highlights how absolutely ridiculous prejudice is and how hatred can lead to the destruction of their entire planet. Because in the last episode, or in that episode, they're left on their homeworld. It's been totally devastated, and they're the last two alive. And the Enterprise like zooms off and it's like, okay, well, you hate each other to the point where you've driven each other to extinction. Now, that is a very powerful episode addressing racism in the 60s. God, Star Trek is so woke. Anyway, um, because and it's always been so subtle about being woke.
So
anyway.
subtle.
So subtle.
Yeah, very subtle.
And I
It
mean, yeah,
bothers me
I can
so
say to
much.
myself, oh yeah, it makes sense that there was a family of them that left the planet and they still lived and whatever. That okay, I can say that, but it takes away from that episode. It takes away from the gravitas of what that
Mhm.
episode meant. And
Yeah.
so it really bothered me that they had one of those characters in just working randomly in a bar.
I
like
liked
nothing has
the actor
happened.
though. The actor
I
was
did
fun.
like the actor. Yeah.
He did a really good job.
But like
Yeah.
I feel like there should have been a dialogue nod to that and an explanation for
Something.
why
Would've
he's
been-
there.
Would have been great. The acting in this movie, I thought, even though it was pretty cheesy in parts, was pretty good.
There's
I really got excited about several bits of acting, and I was like, "Ooh, this is good. This is making me feel things." Starting with the beginning of the movie, I think I think I was the last of the three of us to watch it. So like yes. Oh, I'm gonna cry again. In the beginning, we see Georgiou go home. We see her family. We see young Georgiou, who is so cool. And then I don't know if you both knew what was going to happen as soon as she came home or not, but I was pretty suspicious the whole time. So I was just like, don't do this. Don't do that. Can you not? Can you not? And then she did. And I think I was like texting you guys, like,
Yeah.
that I was bawling my eyes out. So this acting was really good. This, like, everything about this opening sequence for me hit really, really well. I felt the emotion.
I did too.
But I don't think, and you guys can disagree with me, I don't care. I don't think it fit the tone of the rest of the movie.
No.
And so when the tone of the movie shifted completely away from this, I was like a little thrown.
It was
and-
obvious to me.
I was so thrown.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was obvious to me what was going to happen in this scene, and I liked this opening scene as well. I liked that we got to see part of the Terran Empire outside of the starships. And so I'd like to see, like, what are the normal people living like on the Terran Empire? I liked that. I even liked the idea of how they picked their emperor. I thought that was interesting. And it made sense to me what she did. But you're right, that it was a massive tonal shift from this very dramatic, heavy scene to, and now we're gonna make jokes for 85 minutes. That
So true,
that
yeah.
bothered me. I was like, we need to choose something here, because for me, when she is reunited with San at the end, the weight had been lost. All of the, this was like, oh man, this is like the fourth Thor movie. This is Love and Thunder.
This is Love and Thunder.
Oh.
Okay. This is obviously supposed to be two different arcs.
Yeah.
And like multiple episodes of a series, right?
Yeah.
Is what this came down to. And if we had just gotten an Empress Georgiou movie about Empress Georgiou
in the mirror universe.
Oh my
in the
God,
mirror
I would've
universe,
loved
about
that
her
so
rise to power.
much.
Yeah, that. Yes.
I'm thinking like Hunger
I'm
Games
with you.
style, like we
Yeah.
see her and San battling it out and getting to the top two places. I would have been sapped.
Yeah.
I would love that. I have wanted that. I'm like, give me more Georgiou always. But I think even if this was a show, which I know is what they originally planned, I still think that the tonal shift from this scene to the rest of the movie, where, as Marty said, we're joking this whole time, I would say we're joking and we're flirting this whole time, and then we immediately kill off the Delton because that makes fucking sense.
Okay,
Sorry, Mom and Dad.
So
I'm so angry.
I can't. That is. That was at that moment. I almost stopped the movie.
I did stop the movie.
Because here's the thing: is the first time we see Delton's really is in the motion picture, and I have to admit, the first time I saw the motion picture, I was kind of like, "What is with this character?" But over the years, I've come to appreciate the motion picture a lot more than I did when I was younger, and that character. Yeah, and that character. And I always thought it would be interesting to see the Deltons, in a way that we could actually see more about their culture, their society outside of the situation that's going on in the motion picture, right? So when I heard about this character, I was super excited. This was the character I was looking forward to the most. This is the one. Did she last 3 minutes? I don't even know if it was 3 minutes.
I think maybe 3 minutes. Look, I did not love the motion picture. I have stated this before. There are aspects I love of the motion picture, right, that have carried through to the rest of Star Trek. I love the fact that there was a species that was so alluring that they had to take a celibacy oath to serve in Starfleet, right? And the acting was just amazing in the motion picture. And I think like what we got here was amazing of Melle.
Yes.
Melle was so good.
Yes.
I fell in love
So
immediately.
amazing.
I wanted to know everything about her. Even so, if you go back and you watch it, they're all sitting around in their little starship introducing each other. So we get like the background. You don't get the background from her in the same way that you get from
No.
anyone else. She just like uses her little Delton charm on one of the other characters, and that's supposed to be enough. And I was like, "Ooh, that's kind of weird. Can we get a little more?" And then they kill her off, and I'm like, "Oh, I wasn't supposed to already get attached. It's too late. It was immediate. I'm sorry."
And my other problem is that this coming essentially on the heels of Tavine's death in Picard. And she's half Delton. She's half Delton, half Vulcan, according to Memory Alpha.
Wait, what?
The Vulcan in Picard. The bald Vulcan in Picard. According to Memory Alpha, she's supposed to be half and half.
I didn't know that.
I think so. We can look it up. I'm pretty sure. So when I found that out, and then she died, and then Melle dies.
Let's just kill off all
what do we
the
have
Deltons.
Against the Deltons?
See, I'm angry
God, right.
because I fell in love with this actress, Humberly González. I fell in love with her over Christmas because Hallmark came out with their first lesbians as the main character Christmas movie. I think it's Friends and Family Christmas, which is a fake dating, which is like my favorite trope ever.
It was a good Hallmark movie, I have to admit.
It was really cute.
Yeah.
It was so cute. It was so just adorable and wholesome, and I loved it. And I knew she was going to be in this movie, and I was like, I already love her as an actress. She's amazing. And she comes in, she's the Delton, she's gorgeous, she's doing everything right, and then they just give her the most uninteresting death of all time. And I would like to figure out who wrote that, and I would like to, I don't know, throw the script at them.
And then we find out that the Dada Noe guy is also Delton. He's like a cyborg Delton, which
doesn't make any sense.
He's supposed to be Delton too. Yeah, look him up. No. He's supposed to be Delton too, which makes why are we killing all the why are we killing all the Deltons, and why do they not make any sense to me?
They just
don't last. They don't last.
They should.
The only one that lasts is that one in Picard that, like, I think, is it Dodge that talks to, or I'm not sure, but like he's like on screen for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, because they only showed him for 5 seconds, and then immediately he got like vaporized off screen because
I'm like, I gotta stand up for the Deltons. Like they need to like. That species needs to just like cut themselves away from the Federation.
Yeah, they need to leave the Federation apparently, because the Federation is not a good place for them. That's what needs to happen. I'm gonna be mad about Melle for like ever.
Same,
like ever.
she was it was great acting. It was a great character. So much could have happened. Just let's kill her first. Because why not?
With the most absurd death of all.
Like
This guy
unnecessary.
is going around fighting people, hand-to-hand combat. She comes over and he immediately starts vaporizing people.
Not
What?
people. Not people, just her.
Just her.
I-
Just her.
I,
Oh my God. So
I'm sorry.
angry.
I'm so angry. I'm so angry.
I'm so mad about it. It was such a stupid death. It's gonna be the new Tasha Yar for me. Like that death was so
Oh,
stupid and
it was-
pointless and out of
Mm.
nowhere. And then this one, and I'm just like, how? Why? Stop. No, I don't like it. I'm angry. Let's talk about something else.
All right, moving on. Who's another character we need to talk about?
We can talk about him. We can talk about
Oh, Fate Con.
Yeah,
Fate Con. Like here's my biggest issue with
Fate
what is
here's-
his actual name? Alok?
Alok.
I think
Here's
they
my-
used it like twice.
my one of my biggest issues with this show is like, why couldn't he just, and I know why, but like, hear me out. Why couldn't he just be a normal Vulcan? Why, who went crazy because of Ponfar, or a Romulan, or a half Romulan, or a spy? Why couldn't he just be a normal human? Normal humans can still fight. They can still do crazy karate chops and be strong.
Bruce Lee.
Like he doesn't have to be Khan, like genetically engineered
I feel
from
like
the past. Like, why is everybody a special snowflake in this?
Also,
Like they're too
they're not-
special.
they're not fighting anybody that requires superhuman strength, by the way.
they're really
Like they're
not.
fighting other
Yeah,
humans.
it's a heist movie. They have to like, it's, we just got to get the thing, guys. We just got to get the thing.
So he's from a different time period. Which they didn't really like. I guess
Like
they
the
froze him.
70s
They
or
didn't-
something.
Right?
I think it's explained that he was like sleeping cryogenically for a while.
Okay.
Like
Can I
Khan
rant
did.
now?
Like
Can I rant?
he missed the Botany Bay. Everybody get on the Botany Bay. He like missed it. He got
Yeah.
left behind, and they just left him there for a few hundred years.
Can I rant? Because
Can we
he
stop
said
you?
that he grew up on a planet that had been taken over. Did he mean Earth, or did he mean like another planet? Because Earth hadn't gotten colonies by then. Everything about
I'm
this
so
dude-
pissed now. Don't even get me started about Tasha Yar either, because the end of that movie.
I
hold that.
feel like
Oh my god!
now that we're talking about
Right?
Tasha Yar, I feel
Okay.
like we could have had Alok just be from a planet similar to Tasha's, where yes, there were humans there, but like the Federation kind of didn't have really good control. And things
Except
were
he was like from
horrible and
1970
terrible.
or something, wasn't he?
Well, we didn't have to do that.
No, I know we didn't
have
have
to
to- yeah.
have him be genetically modified. We could have just had him have a rough childhood, which is why, like,
Yeah.
he connected so well with Georgiou, and they're both kind of like
No,
crazy.
He's a superhuman. He had to be a superhuman.
Fine. He's
Why?
superhuman.
Why
I
do you have to be
don't.
superhuman?
What?
I don't know, because
Can we
Paramount
just
hates us.
forget about Khan? Can we just
Hey,
not
I
bring
like
him
Khan.
up again?
I
no,
love Khan,
like us
but-
generally, but like Star Trek as a whole.
Oh yeah.
Can we pick up some other cool little trivia and use it, and just stop using Khan all the time?
Can we use Dr. Bashir instead? Oh wait, no, same. Sorry. I'm
That's
just
at
pointing
least
out.
different. It's fine.
At least he was.
We can have genetically modified. This is fine. It
I mean,
doesn't
why
need to
couldn't
be
he be?
Khan.
Why couldn't he be the same as Una's species?
I would probably been okay with that.
That would have made more damn sense. Sorry,
Because
I'm trying not to cuss.
then it would have been a connection to Strange New Worlds, that we
Right.
would know that her species is still around, doing their thing. know.
I'm trying to not cuss because Van's mom, who I'm calling Mrs. T, doesn't want us to cuss as much. So I'm trying to be respectful to Mrs. T. And I call her Mrs. T because Van is Vanish Coffee, and Mrs. T is, I just assume, Van's mom Toffee's
I thought
Mom
maybe
GT.
I thought maybe she had the T on something. I'm like, what does she have the T on? Does she have the T on like why we
She
keep
has-
using con?
She-
I
Because
will ask her.
I want to know.
Are you
Let the
maybe a
poor
little
man-
upset?
Oh man, let Con do his thing and let him be. Like
Just let it go.
We don't need any more Botany Bay people just popping up here and there.
We do
Hey,
not.
maybe there's a whole space station full of embryos that. Oh wait, no, that got blown up.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna send them to the alien universe,
You know what?
and they can deal with Michael Fassbender.
Yeah.
Speaking of
fucking
Tasha
hate
Yar, speaking of
Okay.
Tasha Yar,
Okay.
at the end of the movie, when the new controller or whatever, is like brings
Oh
up
my
like, hey, you guys ever heard of Turkana 4? I'm like, bitch, no. Sorry, Mrs. T. Turkana 4, are you about to tell me that Tasha's poor life is because of the frickin' Section 31? Did they do something there and cause her to go through all of that nonsense before
Rachel
she
Garrett's
gets to
her mom.
Enterprise?
No, sorry.
We're not talking to you right now, Joseph. That's
Grandmother.
too far.
No. Because now I'm thinking,
I think this is hilarious because a lot of people compare Section 31 to the American CIA, and we all know the CIA's history of going and like messing with other people's governments and collapsing them and causing problems. So I actually think it's really funny.
Well, I mean, the CIA.
well,
isn't doing
two of the
shit
three of us are
anymore,
not
so-
laughing. Well, the CIA is not going to be in business much longer, so it's not going to matter. They're going to become Section 31.
I'm only here because the CIA keeps fucking up. But anyway, sorry. Sorry, Mrs. T.
Oh.
Do we want to move on? Let's
Yes.
move on.
Move on. What's next? Who's next?
Move on.
Mel again. We're right back to Mel. This photo is Mel and Quasi, which is a stupid fucking name, and I hate it. Sorry.
I don't like
Sorry,
it because
Mom.
it's a little too on the nose. You know,
It's so on the nose,
Because he's a shape shifter. So like what? He's a quasi this, a quasi that. He's like a whatever. I'm like, come on now. That's like
me
naming him. That's like
introducing
naming him
myself
Morph.
as, hi, I'm white. Like we know, it's fine.
Did you just throw the X-Men under the bus?
Yes, it's like calling him Morph. I'm like,
It
oh, is that why are you called Morph? Oh, I wonder.
It's his superhero name.
What's
He
your
has a real
superpower?
name. We don't
My
know
name
what
is
his real name is.
Quasi. Why? Because I'm maybe this. I'm kind of this, kind of that. Whatever.
His character messed with canon, and made him into an absurdly overpowered character, and I kind of hated it. The actor was amazing, though.
The acting
Okay.
was good.
I thought if there was one person in this set of characters who should have been funny, it should have just been him. Like he was landing his punchlines. He was funny. But like him combined with everybody else, it was too much. Like him and Fuzz, it was too much funny. Like I think they should have just given it to one of them. Either make Quasi the funny guy or make Fuzz the funny guy. I feel like funny and comedy in Star Trek only works when the character who is funny doesn't really know they're funny. Like when Data makes a joke, doesn't know he's making a joke, and everybody laughs, and we laugh too.
Well,
Then it's
I mean,
funny.
it also works that the character's usually just very dry, right? Like Spock made jokes.
Yeah.
And he was
Spock's
intentionally making
hilarious.
jokes. But his delivery was like so dry. It was that perfect kind of like British humor, like cutting deep sarcasm that I love about Vulcans, right? And like
Yes.
Tim Russ did the same thing with Tuvok.
But I
And he
felt
did
like
it
in
beautifully.
this film, I felt like we had at least two people that were like on a comedy stage and like they were battling it out to see who is the funniest. And I'm like,
Yeah, and I didn't love
Great.
it.
come on.
I didn't
Come
love
on,
it.
guys.
I think that the only Star Trek show that has done comedy well was Lower Decks, Like this type of comedy where they're very obvious, they're making lots of jokes.
But those characters weren't in on those jokes. You know what I mean? Like we were in on the jokes as the viewer, but those characters weren't. This felt like the opposite. Like,
well, also the writing. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tear down this movie a little bit. I enjoyed the movie for what it was, which is if I turned off my brain and removed all reference to Star Trek, it's like, oh, this is a cute movie that is like mid-range for me. The writing was not great on the plot. I think the characters and I think the acting was done amazing. And they used what they had, and they brought out these characters. And I'm sure that Michelle Yeoh and some of the other actors had to really get a lot of rewrites done, because whoever wrote this movie should be dragged into the streets and given the Mussolini treatment, because you had potential.
Wow.
whoa.
You had potential.
Wow.
And you pissed all over the potential. And the only reason it was redeemed at all is because the actors were professionals and amazing and great at what they do. But it felt like two different plot lines mushed together. It was like the Justice League of movies in the Star Trek universe. And you know what I mean. Justice League was a horrible fucking movie, and this was very close to being a horrible fucking movie. If Ben Affleck had been in this, it would have been a horrible fucking movie. All I'm saying.
I just wanted to throw the script at somebody. You hate this way more than I do.
I love the acting.
The acting
love
was
that we got to
amazing.
see, like the flashback scenes to Georgiou were done beautifully. I'm sure that was stolen from somebody else's script, because whoever wrote that stuff in the middle, no, this is not it.
All of the Georgiou backstory was very good. That was a different writer. I am convinced it was tonally different every time we went back and got, like a little bit of story for her.
I mean, do we know, was this originally filmed to be a series and was it then chopped up to be a movie? Because that's kind of what it feels like.
They had written the series, and then when they decided to do a movie instead, they took aspects from the different episodes and put them into the movie, but they did it in such a poor way. Look, it would have been fine, totally fine, if they didn't have, characters like this.
Oh,
yeah,
what's his name?
Character, this drove me nuts.
I
This
forgot
is
his
Fuzz.
name. Zeph.
This is Fuzz.
Zeph, the Vulcan guy, who was not a Vulcan guy. He was, oh God, everything about this drove me insane.
He was.
Could we have had a Vulcan that acted like a Vulcan most of the time, but then the tiny little guy driving him occasionally forgot he was supposed to be a Vulcan, and then you would see a crack instead of him just acting the complete opposite of a Vulcan the whole fucking time? Like, he should have pretended just a little bit, and then it cracked, and then that would have been funny, and that would have been cool. But no, he just acted like the most non-Vulcan possible the whole time, and
with an Irish accent
and
a Southern accent.
Of course, Georgiou realizes he's Section 31. It's obvious. Nobody was taking this.
Why did we not just say he's a Romulan?
Why did he have to be? Why did he have Section 31?
Why did he have to be a Vulcan in the first place? Why couldn't he be Romulan? Defector.
Okay, but even Romulans are not as annoying as this character was.
He was he was a lot.
And I understand. Oh, sorry.
I was
going to say, I understand that they had to have, they needed it to not be a real Vulcan in order to fulfill that plot point of that he can sneak into like the mods. I get that, but they could have done that a different way. They could have
made him a human.
They could have figured out a way for him to disrupt that other character's mods without being a weird creature, like, Men in Black type. I'm living inside a fake human body.
It was so thing. Men in Black. That was my first and only thought the whole time. Oh, this is Men in Black. Okay, we're doing that.
And since we're on the topic of like it being taken from other movies, I am so sick and tired of sci-fi movies and films taking that Fifth Element operatic stage performance Star Wars cantina nonsense and like
Oh, that was so
can we come up with something else?
It was
Can we come
so
up with something
Fifth
else?
Element, and it was
It was
driving
so
me
Fifth Element.
insane.
Not
I was
even my
like,
favorite
oh, they're not
part.
even trying. They're not even trying. This is exactly it, but it's done badly, and I don't like it.
Do you understand why I want to drag this writer out onto the street? And
No, I'm
It's
not
crazy.
as violent as you.
Just looked up the
Actually,
writers. There are 2 writers, and they both worked on Discovery and on one of the short treks.
which short track?
So, The Brightest Star. So that was the one with on Kaminar with Saru.
okay, I'm gonna forgive them a little bit and not drag them out into the street
But
like
those are
Joseph,
good.
only because
They
they
are
wrote
good.
a whole series and then they
Those
had
were
to
good
chop it
episodes.
up.
Those were good.
No, but
episodes.
I'm saying they wrote a whole Section 31 script and then they had to chop it up, and they probably didn't have enough time. And they probably had way too much guidance from people above them, which is what happens a lot of times with scripts. Is you've got some producer dude, some dude who doesn't know what they're talking about, hovering over you, being like, actually, we need this little bit in because I think it's funny, even though it doesn't make sense as a whole for the rest of the script. I still want to throw the script at them.
I will.
I still don't think the writing was what it could have been.
I will withdraw my violent tendency because you're right. It's probably a producer's fault, and it was probably a producer who just took their writing and shoved it all together and didn't even consult them. This is what I'm hoping.
I think it probably was also a case of a producer or somebody being like, "Oh, it's a little too heavy on Trek canon lore or Discovery canon lore, and we need to make sure that it's a standalone for people who have never seen Star Trek that they can just jump in." Hence why we don't even have Star Trek in the title. It's like so impossible to see where the Star Trek is on the Section 31 logo that they were just like, let's take out any reference to like what might have happened.
It's like when they do something that's Star Trek related, but they don't put Star Trek in it. It turns out to be garbage. Enterprise season 1.
Okay, don't get me started on Enterprise.
We
can go back to hating on Archer anytime. It is like a core foundation for
Porthos
me.
is my boy. Okay,
Porthos is amazing. I love that.
Porthos
dude.
might have been played
Star Trek Porthos.
Porthos might have been played by 3 different female Bigos, but he is still my boy. Okay. Why do I know that?
You know more about Porthos than I do.
I love Porthos. Porthos has a bad puppy daddy, and I hate him. It's fine.
Let's.
We're gonna table Archer.
Let's table Archer and Porthos.
So now we have. You want to talk about? I don't want to talk about Georgiou and her true love. This makes me sad.
I think this was the most compelling aspect of this entire movie, right? And I wish we had focused more.
They didn't focus on it. Yeah.
This was a great plot point. And hey, by the way, if you want to do a Star Trek series that has nothing to do with Star Trek, except for one character, make it about Georgiou and San, which is what they should have done.
That's why I'm with Van. I think it would have been way more interesting if this entire thing had been like a mirror universe movie or a mirror universe like mini series of 5-6 episodes where maybe she is relaying this information to her new Section 31 team. Like maybe she is like, so you get Michelle, you get like the back and forth, but like the whole, that would have been a much more compelling story, you know? Because the Mirrorverse on its own
made me cry like 3 times. Yeah. 3 separate times in this film, I was crying over San. And you know, that's fair. That's fair.
So let's get into the plot points that we really loved, right? Let's explain.
There was plot.
Let's explain the flashback and what Philippa had to do.
Yeah. So for me, one of the things I like Georgiou as a character, and this is before this movie, like in Discovery, the reason I liked her was because we saw a lot of growth of her character in Discovery. We saw her go from being Emperor of the Mirror Universe of the Terran Empire. She comes over to the normal universe. She befriends Michael, and we see a lot of growth there between her and Michael because she had that other character to kind of help build her up into a different person. So we see her become somebody else. She takes this opportunity to start a new life. I loved that about her character. So what I did love about Section 31 was the fact that they went back and they reminded us of who she was before Discovery, who she was when she was living in the Terran Empire. And I liked San because it introduced this inkling of vulnerability for her character that then comes out when she gets close to Michael Burnham, you know? And it makes more sense to me now why she was close to Michael, even in her own universe, because she had these feelings for San. So that I did like. That I would have loved to have seen more of.
Yeah. I think the fact that it showed that she had grown up on a planet with a loving family, it showed actual genuine concern about her safety when she was whisked away, that she made this friendship that she seemed to value, and then was forced to make a decision. And she cried about having to essentially murder her family, which I thought was very triggering, and that's a horrible thing. It shows like, okay, yes, there's evil in this woman, but there's also
survival
and good. Like she had to do this to survive, and
Okay, I'm gonna cry again. Thank you.
I'm
just
sorry.
gonna cry again thinking about the whole opening sequence.
Well, I mean, in the opening sequence too, I feel like you can read the opening sequence multiple ways. You can read it as like Van said, a sort of Hunger Games situation where this is like a one person's gonna win, there's no choice, and she's just like, I'm gonna go for it, you know, no matter what. But you can also see it from the point of view of somebody who's like, who knows that she loses either way. She wins and she loses her family. She loses, she probably still loses her family, and she loses San, she loses, you know, everything. So there is like a moment where you think to yourself, okay, is she 100% evil here? Or is this a character who thinks to herself, well, if I gain control of the Empire, then I can control what happens in the Empire. There's like a moment where you might think to yourself, well, maybe she'll do this and make change. You know, obviously that she doesn't do that, but like there is like the possibility for that.
Well, I think one of the things that happened in the intro sequence was when they told her that San failed to have the strength to do what he had to do, and so his whole family burns in tribute to his failure. And so,
it wasn't even his whole family, though, was it? It was like the whole
village,
town or village or whatever.
Yeah.
Like everybody. She killed 3 people, and his failure to kill his family killed even more.
Right.
Like, so I don't think it was ever a choice for her.
No. No. And that's the redeeming part of this, right? It's like, this is just a brutal society that forces brutal decisions. And she probably was aware that, like, if she doesn't do this, more people die. Now, it doesn't forgive what she did in between, like, that situation and later on. But it kind of shows, like, this society has set up everybody to be the worst versions of themselves. And it's like, if you really were the worst version of yourself, how much evil would you do? Right? If you were rewarded for being your worst version, and if you were encouraged to be your worst version, I think anybody could be pretty bad at that point. So it gives humanity, it makes her character even more powerful, I think. Right?
But I think that's where they should have put the focus then, because that was so moving and that was so powerful. I think the focus should have been on that more than on the heist scenario. Or I think they could have adjusted the Section 31 mission to make that moment between her and San at the end more impactful. But because of all of the humor and the chaos goblin aspect of what was going on in the film, I felt like the moment of them together at the end, like, really suffered because of that.
Yeah.
And
I think the movie was 2 tones, and I think it didn't work in the end. It just did not work in the end. And I absolutely would have preferred that they do one tone or the other. We could have had a different opening sequence that gave us some insight into her past, some insight into what we needed to expect later. We could have introduced San, which, we needed to introduce him. We needed to have that for later. But the two tones threw me off, and I really hated it. And I have watched the movie 3 times now. Don't get me wrong. I watched it 3 times, and I might just watch it again later today and then pause right before Mel dies because I'm still angry about this.
I mean, I think for me, aside from the tonal shift, the reason why for me the movie kind of failed as a Star Trek film is because where was the morality aspect? And I'm not saying that every single Star Trek episode or series has to be completely based on some more question of morality, but the good ones are, and there was an opportunity there to use the beginning as a question of morality, and then, to kind of put across this message of why this is important to be talking about. Well, why are we talking about this? And instead of just having this doomsday device that's going to wipe out everybody, with I felt no real good explanation as to why it was created in the first place. I can't hear Van.
You're muted, I think.
I was complaining loudly about the name of the universe ending.
Yeah.
We have this device that's just gonna burn and obliterate everything around it, and we're just gonna make jokes about its name repeatedly.
Also, did we get a really clear resolution as to what happened with that thing?
No.
Did it destroy part of the mirror universe, or did it end up destroying the space between the two universes?
Maybe.
I think it destroyed the space between. They didn't explain it. Look, this is another aspect that I hated, right? And it's not even bad technobabble. There are aspects of Discovery that had bad technobabble, and I just went with it, and I was okay with it. Even though I would have liked to have dived into the science a little bit more. This was just we created a device that can blow up a galaxy, but we're going to use it to close the portal, and we're not going to explain how that makes any sense at all. We're not even going to pretend to make something up to make it make sense. We're just going to blow this thing up, and then nobody dies, and the portal's closed, and everything's okay. Because Paramount hates fans. Paramount hates fans. I'm just going to go back to you're on mute again, Van.
I was cussing. That was intentional. Sorry. The techno babble of that doll that's thrown out of the spaceship at the end and absolutely hits perfectly the teeny tiny little guy.
Oh, the doll that just will cataclysmically blow things up? The only weapon they have just happened to be the power cell of a doll that I can power with AA batteries, but let's make this a weapon of mass destruction.
But it did so perfectly.
I can't believe we killed the Delton for this.
We killed the Delton for this. Yes.
And now I have to blame them for Tasha
I do have to point out
Oh.
that my partner, who is not the Trekkie that I am, actually was explaining to me that it was very, very funny that they finished the film on a garbage scowl, I think is what they called it, which is funny because I think it's in the first Tribbles episode. What's that? Trials and Tribulations. Scotty.
Trouble with Tribbles?
Is it Trouble with Tribbles or Trials and Tribulations? That's
Trouble with Tribbles is the TOS episode.
Okay, yeah. Trouble with Tribbles. Scotty starts the fight with the Klingons because they compare the Enterprise to a garbage scowl, and so it's really funny that that's what they use to save the universe. So yeah.
That is pretty funny.
This is funny, and I liked that nod. But also at the same time, that was really stupid, and I hated just about anything that happened on that ship because I'm like, listen, Star Trek science isn't science, but this is also like this is almost Star Wars science, which is
Star Trek
nowhere
science
near science.
Wait, hold on a second.
Stop.
Star Trek science is indeed science. There's science behind it. This was not even Star Wars science. This was this was like Firefly science. Let me put a bunch of dead bodies on a spaceship and enter an atmosphere, and they don't just get immediately blown away.
They weren't vaporized.
I mean,
oh wow, yeah, it might be Firefly science actually.
Yeah.
I
This was
think
Joss
of
Whedon
Star
science.
Wars
Look,
science
take my love,
as
take
magic
my land.
more
Don't be
than
taking
science.
my Firefly.
Yeah, no, don't take my Firefly.
Oh, guys.
and
the doll. I'm still stuck on. That was so dumb. It made me so mad. That's not you can't do that. It's not a thing. You cannot go launch a doll out of the back of a garbage truck and hit anything.
Can I just say that, like, I just finished watching it for a second time, literally like 5 minutes before this podcast started, and I already had forgotten about the doll. That's how forgettable these scenes were. I'd forgotten about the doll, and then you brought the doll up. I'm like, oh yeah, I just watched that 10 minutes ago, and I don't remember it. Like, oh my god.
it was the stupidest thing ever. They couldn't. Okay, so they even said Section 31 always has a plan B. So your plan B is a garbage scow, not a shuttle with like a phaser bank.
Oh, we
We're gonna
forgot to
put-
talk about an entire character.
Oh
Which character?
The cyborg guy.
Oh yes.
no.
What was his name?
I don't
I don't
know.
even. I have a whole list here of the characters, and I
this
did not
was
even write
Zeph.
down his name.
This is
was that Zeph?
Yeah, that's
Zeph.
Zeph. Fuzz is
Is
the fake.
You're right.
Vulcan.
That's Zeph. That I did write down his name.
This is Zeph.
The way
looks like
I
a
hate
Borg.
this man.
He's
The
like a
way I
Borg
hate this
wannabe.
man.
A Borg wannabe. Before the Borg.
Before
like
the Borg.
this is before the Borg, but like look at him. Like the Borg saw this guy, were like, I got an idea. Let's go like with this guy's look. Like what the heck?
So
It
this
would
is
have
the
been
origin-
so much more interesting if instead of Fuzz going inside him, which was creepy, he put some kind of virus or something on him that controlled him. Like we still could have had that aspect
Oh, like
without
control,
like
an aspect of control. Like that could have been.
We would never do something like that again.
But I'm like, you could have actually like Section 31 actually has that technology. Like they could, like he could have taken it.
yes,
Or he could have
but
gotten it from the mirror universe.
we don't want to rehash the same plot point again because why would we do that? We would never take from the past and rehash over and over and over again because we would never, ever be that unoriginal.
Con. Sorry.
Fake con.
Fake con. Yeah, no. We're never gonna go back and rehash things. I do love how Marty saying she forgot about the doll entirely
Totally forgot about
reminded
it.
me that we completely did not talk about an entire main member of the cast.
Oh yeah,
I
The guy
I
him.
did not
the
care
guy
about him.
the
at
guy who
all.
inspired the Borg.
Yeah. Yes.
Can I also say, like, I thought it was weird that they threw in that, like, that he and Garrett were kind of together. I'm like, really
Yeah.
though?
Mm-mm.
Like,
Not even.
not
a little
even
bit.
Picard had that bad of taste in his part.
I don't understand.
And he dated Q, so
Yeah, he did date Q, which I think is probably the best person he dated personally.
Wait, who dated
Truth.
Q?
I'm mad at Patrick
Picard.
Stewart though, so like,
When
don't.
did he date Q?
they were
In
bed
my
together.
head, he dated Q. Are
oh,
you
gotcha,
kidding
gotcha.
me?
Gotcha. Okay.
Check into our next podcast where we talk about Star Trek not canon relationships that Marty and I believe are absolutely canon.
Look, you cannot stop. Look, I think I could probably write a dissertation how I believe that that Q card actually is canon.
Oh yeah, no, I'm on board.
Okay,
I'm on
but
board.
can we also establish the fact that Geordi and Data totally were like banging each other, like behind the warp core?
Yeah, no, let's write that down for the podcast we're doing. You can pull that one up. We'll have a long
I am going
conversation
to go
about
deep
that.
into
No,
this.
no,
I got a text message from somebody asking, once has a question for Van, who
dear.
doesn't want to ask in the chat. What did Patrick Stewart do to make you so angry?
Oh God. Here's
You just
the
finished
thing.
reading
Here's the thing.
his biography, his autobiography,
Yes,
right?
yes. I finished reading his memoir, and it was not interesting. I'm sorry. It was 18 hours, and it was not actually 18 hours because I didn't listen to him. I was going to listen to him at normal speed. I swear I was, but anytime people record for an audiobook, they record slower than a person naturally talks. And that is so you can very clearly and distinctly hear everything that they are saying. And I appreciate that. But I did speed him up because he was talking so slow. It was a lot about his childhood, which I knew from interviews was kind of traumatic and not sunshine and rainbows. And then it was just a series of I worked this acting job and this acting job and met this famous person and interacted with this famous person and lost my virginity to this person and did something with this person. And then I dated this person for a while. So it's just a lot of dates and times, which I didn't feel very interested in. And then he cheats on his fucking wife. And I'm like, oh no, your wife did not follow you to LA because she was at home with her career that she loved and was really, really good at taking care of your fucking kids. And you go to the Star Trek writers and say, hey, I think Picard should have a romance. Riker's getting all these romances. Stop alluding to past romances. Give me an actual romance. And then he sleeps with that woman cheating on his wife. He asked, "Can I?"
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't know that. See, I haven't finished the book yet. I haven't finished the memoir.
I'm like, you not only are cheating on your wife, you are asking the writers to write you a romance, and then you go sleep with the person that is your fictional romance.
And then she left him for Q. See?
It all makes sense now. It all makes sense now.
Yeah.
No, it is
okay. So petition.
And then he cheated on his second wife, and his second wife was younger than his first wife, and then his third wife is younger than his kids.
Honestly, sounds like my dad. But anyway.
Yeah.
No I'm just angry. I'm just angry. Don't meet your idols. No, he cheated on both of his two first wives. I don't like a cheater, but like he was lonely in LA because his first wife was taking care of their kids and had a career that he jet setted off to LA for, and he was annoyed that she didn't follow him.
That should be a book, Lonely in LA.
Lonely in LA.
Or like the new Red Hot Chili Peppers album, Lonely in LA.
If only we knew an author who could write a book about this.
Yeah. If only we knew an author who would write a book about Melle not dying in Section 31 and Tasha Yar not dying by the hands of the gooey oil blob monster.
It sounds like an author we know needs to write a couple more Star Trek related short stories for us.
Here's a pitch, Marty, right?
I'm here.
This author writes a book about a universe where somebody time travels and basically incapacitates Rick Berman as a child in some way so that he never becomes involved in Star Trek. And then we just explore what Star Trek is like if Rick Berman had fucked off forever.
Let me tell you how this Star
Trek
women
goes. Get uniforms.
It goes like this. This is how it goes. They're all gay. All the women get with each other. Jadzia and Kira.
Yes, please.
Like the ladies. Oh, yeah, we're gonna put T'Pol with
Hoshi?
with Hoshi.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This makes
I
sense,
mean,
actually.
That makes so much more sense than
Makes
This
so
fucking
much more
Trip.
sense. Makes so much more sense.
Archer and Trip.
Tasha
start
and
dating.
Data officially
Tasha-
together.
Very, very good. Very
Mhm.
good. Very good. I'm okay with this. But I do have to say that Trip and Archer need to get together, but then Trip and Reed are also a couple. We're getting a little
Trip
poly on
leaves
the Enterprise.
Archer for Reed.
No.
basically.
Same time. We're getting
Okay.
a poly situation here.
Mhm.
Because Reed could not ever be enough for
And T'Pol
Trip.
is
So
like
he needs a second person to occupy Trip, because Trip would actually annoy Reed too much for them to be.
and then T'Pol says, F this, Hoshi and
Mayweather.
what's Mayweather, grab Porthos, we're out of here. We're going to Vulcan. Like,
No.
Oh,
it'd
yeah,
be
no,
better
I'm
if
on
she
board
would
with
just
this.
space Archer. I'm okay with that. Just
We
like
can
I
leave
think she
Archer
should just
and
dump
Trip
Archer on the
together, it's
planet
fine.
where his dog peed on their tree.
yes.
Okay, that's fine. We can do that one. Actually, that one's fine. Yeah, no, I
Who else needs
also
to get with whoever.
need
Uhura
Seven
and
of
Chapel.
Nine to come out as
Oh,
a
yeah.
lesbian a lot sooner, and
Officially.
she never gets with Chakotay.
No, this is what happens is Chakotay asks her out and she just looks at him and she's like, dude, I'm gay.
Like, dude, I thought about it actually as I've been coming to terms
Like-
with my humanity.
Like,
and
I
no.
am Borg and Borg are gay. It's like
Borg are
Ken,
so gay.
It's like Ken is beach, but Borg is gay. It's like,
Borg
you know?
is so gay.
I feel like we have veered off into left field a little bit here.
Okay, but we're having more fun than talking about the movie.
I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about it at all.
Okay, so when we do our
and
not
Porthos
canon,
because Porthos is like disappears, right? Because the transwarp like beaming, and then somehow ends up on the Enterprise, gets together with Spot. They have lizard babies that are somehow distantly related to Janeway's lizard babies, salamander babies.
okay, that's too far. That's too far. Write it and I'll read it though. Like, write it and I'll read it.
Too far, but I'll read it.
I'm gonna write it.
And
in
you know what? This is already a better plot than that fucking movie we just reviewed. I
can't believe I watched it twice. I'm probably gonna watch it again because I still haven't made an official review, and I'll have to get down to the
before
essence.
we're done, I would like to eviscerate it. Here, let me find the slide that I want to talk about. Not that slide. I think also I complained about the costumes during this. Like, I was keeping you guys updated.
Yeah,
with
you
my
did say
feelings,
something
right?
about the costume.
I said somebody gave the
want me to present
costume
it?
designer $50, like a $50 gift card to
H&M or
like
something.
What did I say? No, Spirit Halloween. I was feeling feisty. Some of the costumes are so beautiful, so gorgeous, and then
And they're
others,
all Georgiou's costumes.
well, yeah, she looks great.
Hers are great. Everybody else's are like
Fuzz looks great too.
grab something.
There
from
are
the truck.
some that are just absolutely stunning, and I love them. And then others, like Rachel Garrett, her
just, like, gave it-
costumes. I don't even think I got a picture of it, but when she's in her like black tactical stuff later, it literally, like, you can see the Velcro. It is a piece of junk. Like, somebody's gonna wear that for a Halloween costume. But yeah, let's go back to the other slide that I had with Georgiou and Fuzz, because it illustrates perfectly what I was complaining about. There we go. In this photo, we have screens in the background giving weird lights. We have weird lighting overhead overall. And then we have a bright spotlight pointed right at the camera.
Yeah, that's
And
really
this
weird.
is in every fucking scene of this fucking movie. There are 3 completely different conflicting lights. And I literally kept struggling to even look at the movie because my eyes got so tired. They were so overwhelmed by
Maybe
lights
this is why I
everywhere
forgot about the
all the
doll.
time.
Maybe I couldn't see the doll for all the lights
Oh
or
my
all the super dark
It's
scenes.
I'm like, I would like to see what's going on. And so I complain when they go too dark and I cannot see what is on the screen. But this is
Picard.
like, yeah, Picard. It's too light in a terrible way. I don't need this much backlighting. Okay? I don't need you to shine a light directly in my face while I am trying to watch it. The lighting designer was having fun and I'm sure they had a blast, but I would like to throw a light at them, a script at them, something, because this hurt my eyes. This hurt my eyes. It was too much. It was a lot and I hated it. And I just wanted to rant about that before we closed up this episode.
Oh, hold on a second.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, no, that costume is terrible and cheap, and it looks terrible and cheap, and she could have looked so hot. Or at least like reasonable. Like, is she gonna go do anything in this costume? No, it doesn't even look comfortable. It does not look like she's gonna go. It's too bulky. You can't fight in that.
No.
Everything about it was incorrect.
I love the actress for this character, but I don't understand the aesthetic behind. We go from, like, we have this, right? Which, as you said, made no sense at all. And then we have this.
Yeah, and then we have her with her short bob and her black lipstick. I think that is her attempt to be undercover, and she just overcompensates that because she's really bad at it. Maybe. I don't know.
It didn't make any sense at all. It was two vibes again. Two vibes even for the character.
Yeah.
It made no sense because she comes across as intelligent, right? And professional, but then she's just wildly bad at undercover work.
Which is probably why she leaves Section 31 and goes on to captain something, because she's better at captaining, which is disappointing to me because we're supposed to believe she goes on to like captain a ship, but she has no control over anyone this entire movie. She is not in charge. And even if she isn't in charge, she has no leadership skills that she is displaying whatsoever. And she's going to go be a captain later? Did she like get hit on the head and suddenly develop leadership skills? No, I love her. I love this episode from The Next Generation where she shows up. And this episode crushes me because they get thrown back in time and they live and they survive. And then Picard has to send them back. And they all go back knowing that they're going to fucking die. Like,
she dies again.
I love that episode, and I really am glad that we got to see Rachel Garrett before, but I find it difficult to believe that that person went on to be an amazing captain of the starship, the flagship of the Federation. Not just a ship, the flagship of the Federation. I don't believe it.
Same.
So back to the lights.
Sorry. Back to the lights. Oh my God. There are four lights. There are four lights. Okay, sorry. I'm
there are 4 lights, and not a single one of them is focused
on
anything or anyone.
Oh, the lights.
It's the constant like killed me. Throbbing of the lights too.
No, yes, they were not steady. They were throbbing. I think they were just on the border of this entire film getting an epilepsy warning for the whole thing.
Like, I was wondering that too. Actually, the first time I watched it, I was like, this feels very stroby, but it's not stroby.
I'm not sure if it was enough, but I think probably it could have been enough for some people, depending on their threshold for lights. But it was distracting and exhausting for my eyes, but I'm like weird about light in general. I have thoughts and feelings, and most of them are.
Should we close this out, but each saying one thing about the movie we did like?
Are we all just gonna say Georgiou?
No, I'm gonna come up with a new one. I liked the hand-to-hand combat scenes. I liked the fighting scenes.
Oh,
this is
yes,
mostly
those
the
were
fighting
very
with
well done.
Michelle Yeoh, but the hand-to-hand combat scenes I thought were fun. They were well choreographed.
They gave her a lot, which is good. That is something she is really, really good at, and I am glad that she got to use her talent in this film. Those were all very, very beautiful. Which is why it made no fucking sense when we get this amazing hand-to-hand combat scene and then out of nowhere vaporize Melle.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna move on from that. Joseph, say something nice. Well, I think of something.
I felt that the acting, particularly by Michelle Yeoh, was amazing, and I would like to see more exploration of the mirror universe and kind of how she developed. So that worked, and I think that was great. And I definitely do not ever want to see an alien that is about 2 centimeters tall ever again in Star Trek.
Look, if you're gonna give me a Vulcan, give me a real Vulcan. I actually really wanted him to be, like she said, a Vulcan that went crazy because of Pon farr.
Which would have been fine.
Which would have been fantastic. That would have been awesome. That would have been hilarious.
That would have been fun. We could have made a lot of jokes about that.
Yeah. I mean, I would take more Pon farr jokes than over.
Oh my God. Yes.
Over the 2 centimeter tall alien. Yeah. Yeah. Van?
I'm struggling. What's that TikTok?
I'm thinking,
audio
about
where it's like I'm finding it.
It
takes you that long. It does. It does. I liked how well the actors and actresses came in and delivered their roles and did such a fantastic job. I
just likes Melle.
really enjoyed. I do just like
the first 2 minutes. Existence.
The sound effects were very nice. The sound effects were really, really nice. They did have zero complaints about,
and that was nice. Yeah,
I have zero complaints about the sound effects or the music score overall, and it did not drown out the audio of them talking, which is a big pet peeve of mine. So the sound mixer on this movie did a good job. The sound, yeah.
Thank you, sound guy or gal.
Sound guy or gal, they, them.
The sound they.
All
did
of
a great job.
all of the sound crew. You did amazing. I appreciate you. You made this film. Thank you.
I feel like that's a good place to close it out.
We have not yet picked our next episode. It might be not canon ships that we believe are canon. We keep talking about that one, but
or maybe we'll talk about Andor.
Or maybe we will talk about something Star Wars related. Yes, absolutely. We would love to get bullied off of the internet. That concludes episode 12, Empress Georgiou Fan Club. We're so glad that you tagged along. Please give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Share our podcast with your friends and family. Until next time.
Going out to explore. Tune-in comes to another frackin' podcast. Time travel, wormholes, and more. Chevron's locked on another frackin' podcast. Debating all the lore. We get signal of another frackin' podcast. Nerdy topics galore. Systems go for another frackin' podcast.